guys, it's Eric, owner of Far Point Farms here in the mountains of North Carolina, and tonight it is time to talk about alternative forms of communication. You know, the world's a strange place. Sometimes it almost feels like they might be trying to manipulate the amount of information we have access to. This is going to be one of the conversations that I have that talk about ways around that, ways that we can go back to a more free speech society. This behind me is called a BBS, a bulletin board system. And if you are of a certain age and of a certain mindset, this might seem very familiar. Bulletin board systems were around from about 1982, I think, 81 maybe, all the way through to the millennium, about 2000, before they really died off as a primary way of communicating online. So before the internet, BBS has existed as a way for an individual to start on his own computer a network, not a network, but a bulletin board system, a way that people could come in, leave messages, somebody else could call in, retrieve those messages. Same with files, same with photographs, same with text files. And there were even ways to play games on these things. As this progressed, it started off as a very simple way, just come on, post a message, read a message. This expanded over the years, and this was all based in DOS, to become they had these subfolders, so you would have, maybe it's classifieds, maybe it's the news, maybe it's entertainment, and so on and so forth, these subfolders. So you would go in there and you'd be able to read or post messages into different topic bases that you were interested in. Much like Usenet, which if you're of a certain age and mindset, you might remember Usenet. Now all this stuff was around and it slowly built into more powerful and more interesting systems. Networks were created, DovNet, IceNet, WWIV net, FidoNet being the huge one. And these networks predated the internet and operated off of a more decentralized way of transferring information, much more like a BitTorrent is today. Each individual computer contained almost all the data necessary, and each night those computers would contact each other in nodes, and those nodes would transfer any information that had been uploaded to this computer. So if this is a BBS, the information that my local people who would call into this BBS, they would upload information, files, comments, whatever, and then at a predetermined time, say 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, mine would call out to a local hub, download all the files and information that my site had received, and I would receive messages from all the other networks in the hub. Very interesting way that this whole system works, and it still works well to this day. So what happened to BBSs? After the year 2000, when the internet took off and graphical interfaces really, that's what was the future, and there's no denying that. These things kind of fell by the wayside. They survived into the internet age by moving on to a system called Telnet, which is it's kind of like the deep web. It exists as a layer of the internet, but it's not one that is commonly used anymore. But Telnet is able to handle BBSs beautifully. You can take older DOS BBSs and with a little bit of tweaking get them to work as a modern Telnet BBS, or in the case that I'm using now, which I finally gave up on my DOS-based BBS a few years back when I had a crash, I moved on to SyncroNet, which is probably the most popular internet package for BBSs now. So I have this set up. This has been a private system that has been in operation on and off since 1994, if you can believe that. Starting off on an old 46133 or 5x86 that AMD put out, and later on morphing over to other systems, and now it sits on my Panasonic CF29 Toughbook, which is a single core ancient laptop, but it's still working. In fact, the reason that I'm making this video right now is that it too suffered a crash. I've just gone ahead and rebuilt it, and it's back up online, but I'm thinking that as the radio station is going to get improved upon as well at the same time while I have this all apart, switching from AM to FM, and I'm switching the Shoutcast server over to a little bit higher bandwidth. I'm probably going to upgrade the laptop to something a little more modern as well. But what I'm going to do now is, you see it in the background, and this is just the intro screen. Actually, it's disconnected because of a lack of time. I'm going to move this over to the Panasonic. I'm going to show you the software that runs this system. And then I'm going to move you onto one of those screencasting programs on another computer in the house, and I will show you what it looks like to operate inside of a BBS. So let's do it. So here we are. This is a web server or a BBS server. It is also where I run the radio show off of. Winamp is running in the background here, broadcasting 24/7 on 1670 AM. Soon to be moving over to the FM bands. The AM transmitter that I've had for all these years, 20 plus years, just been giving me so many fits. Here we are, it's down again, and I just figured, what the heck, I'm going to go ahead and try to get an FM transmitter, probably get a little bit of range out of that as well, hopefully. Anyway, it also broadcasts on Shoutcast. So, you take these old laptops, people pretty much throwing these things away, feel like they're worth $5, $10, but they actually still have quite a bit of use. As long as I don't try to go out and surf the web right now, this thing is totally capable of broadcasting, having up to 20 connections on Shoutcast, and as well as running this BBS. Up here you can see I have 4 nodes active, but you can have hundreds of nodes. I think it's up to like 128 nodes. It would be highly unlikely that you would have 128 people trying to contact you all at the same time, but Syncternet's capable of doing that. And this stuff here, I'm not going to get into it. This one's kind of interesting. You see people who try to call in and log in. It has just basically a log file of all the folks that logged in the last couple hours or couple days. The program itself it's free. There's nothing to this. It's open source free program. I'm not sure if it's open source, but it's free. It gets updated fairly regularly, and it's popular. And it's certainly customizable, as you will see when we go online. Anyway, syncterm is the program we're going to be using to access this program once we get on there, and synchronet is the program that is running. I just have it so if the power goes out, this thing auto starts again and reboots. And then there is one more program that I have installed in order to make this work properly, because I have what's called a dynamic IP address. This also works with Shoutcast as well. It's called remote IP, and what it's doing is it is allowing me to log on here with my dynamic IP. It goes out onto the web, and every 5 or 10 minutes there, it's going to check and see if the dynamic IP has changed. And if it has, it just relays that information. So that when you type in the midnightcafe.ddns.net, it will always bring you exactly to this. The only other piece of hardware or any other modification that I made in order to make this work properly is I went on my router and I gave it the hardware IP for this computer, and told it it's okay to open up port 23 just to this computer. So if you're worried about somebody hacking you, and people do try to get into this, and I don't know if they're ever successful, what's the point? There's nothing there that's top secret or whatnot, that if they're trying to get into it, it's only going to affect this. So if you got a dedicated low-end laptop for a project like this, or for that matter, a Shoutcast server, you really have nothing to worry about as far as data loss. There's nothing on this computer to lose, really. Now, the only time that this system has gone down in the last, I would say, 10 years is hard drive crashes. The computer had a really old school physical IDE hard drive, worked for years and years and years. One day it no longer worked, and it's a shame because I had hundreds and hundreds of Art Bell audio files and Midnight Cafe shows dating all the way back to the mid-90s or late 90s, and of course text files and stuff. So there was a lot of conversations on there as well that were really cool. A lot of talk about UFOs and whatnot, and all that got lost. Now I've recreated this and started uploading Midnight Cafe files, but that's when I realized that this runs off of Windows 7, that it's just getting on in years, and I think it's time maybe to replace this before I suffer some kind of new mechanical breakdown. So I think what I'm going to do here is leave this up so y'all can have a chance to play with it for a little while. Probably pull it down when the new FM transmitter comes. Probably replace this. I've been really happy with these Toughbooks, so I'll probably try to find maybe a dual-core Panasonic Toughbook. Still nothing brand new, but just something I can get through another maybe another decade or so, and I'll set it all back up on that, and then I'll take the time to reinstall all the files and all the audio files, text files, things like that, photographs of UFOs and whatnot. So there you go. Let's go over to another computer. I'll get screencast on so we're not staring at a laptop. We'll be actually staring at the screen. Show you what it looks like to be in a BBS in the modern era. Show you what ANSI screens look like and whatnot. It's pretty cool. So let's do it. All right, so here we are. This is my shop computer. You can see I got a lot of automotive programs on here, but the program we're going to be interested in playing with today is that one right there called syncterm. Syncterm's free download, and it allows you to contact BBSs, bulletin board systems. This is the pre-internet, my friends. This is where it all began. Right here at the top is my own, very own bulletin board system, the Midnight Cafe. I'll zoom in a little bit here. And here we go. This right here is what we call an ANSI screen. This is a custom screen that I created for myself years ago and updated over the years. And the process is fairly simple. If you want to sign up as a new user, if you want to check out the system, it'll be online until I transfer all the information over to the new computer. So it'll be on and off for a little while. But I'll go ahead and log in. My username is Mad Dog, or my user number is 2. I'll go ahead and type in my password. And here we go. And this is where it goes. So Synchronet, you can add, these systems are completely customizable. I used WWIV, World War IV, for 100 years, it feels like. And so Synchronet's kind of new to me, but I did move over to it when I finally got rid of the DOS system I was using for all those years. But we can look here at statistics. Thank you very much. And it shows us here, Mountains, North Carolina, SIOPS is North Star. That's the internal IP address that it's bouncing around on. I have 8 users, 64 logins. Here's a whole bunch of stuff, emails, files, all kinds of stuff. 11 minutes used today, 2 logins today. That's pretty cool. So some days this thing will get a bunch of use, some days it won't. For many years, this was a private system. And so it's just now being opened up to the public in the last 6 months. Not a lot of activity out there, but that's okay. So let us see here if there's anything. Statistics, we already looked at that. All right, so let's quit that, I guess. There we go. And auto message by me back in September. Welcome to Midnight Cafe BBS, right? There you go. When the internet was unheard of and BBS's ruled the night. So that's me. The Midnight Cafe is the system. I am Mad Dog. And here we are. So you can search for new messages. Right now, I'm not going to do that. I want to show you the main screen here. Let's go ahead. And that's it. Oh, file not found. Oh, might have a little issue there from overnight. Who knows? So this is actually the stock message board system or system that you will see when you log on. But you can change things around. And I actually was able to use the old custom Midnight Cafe bulletin board setup from before. So it's available out there. Maybe I'll show you that before we leave. Here's a little interesting bit here. We'll go to info and I'll show you the Midnight Cafe. Again, it's going to show you this, but I did ANSI art for this years ago. And there we are, back online since 10/31/94. Came back to life as a Synchronet system here in 2019. Now, the original system ran all the way through 2019, the first month of 2019 before that computer crashed and wiped it all out. So now we're on Synchronet. We are connected to Telnet and no dial-up at this time, but the computer that I use does have a 56K modem. So in the event of, an internet issue, I could still go back online and allow people to exchange information, which is what this is really all about. There's the old computer, a 586 133, overclocked, of course. Now I'm using a CF29 MK5 Toughbook, and it is an SSD drive. So transferring this over to a newer computer, hopefully it'll be easy enough. So built-in wireless LAN, fiber optic Telnet, 4 nodes, tons of old shows. We got Art Bell, InfoWars, Midnight Cafe, and a whole lot more. So there we go. So let me quit back onto that. Now we're in here. So let's go into new message scan. I'm not sure if there are any new messages, but what we have here, so what a BBS is in its base form is a place to post messages. That's why it's called a bulletin board. I can go in here, post forums, a lot like Usenet was, if anyone remembers that, or like any modern board, SurvivalNet board. There's like a lot of Atari Age. There's a lot of boards out there to allow people to post in subdirectories and content areas. This also has file areas with Midnight Cafe shows. A lot of that stuff is currently offline as I get ready to transition over. I just don't want to spend the time adding all the files back because I am going to be taking this down and then rebooting it again. But certainly if you want to take a trip down memory lane, you can come check this stuff out. We'll go ahead and do it. I'm going to go with all. Now this is networked. So what we have here, look at this. Yeah. So the real X files, news from the owner. A lot of cool stuff going on here. This is back from September. I posted something apparently. News from the owner, general chat. There's messages in a lot of these, 4 messages. But we also have network. There's a network called DoveNet. I'm also on PrepperNet, SurvivalNet. So there's a lot of networked folks out there. And this is kind of like the original internet. This is what it is. And you really ought to just go check it out and see what you got. Sign up for an account. You can certainly go on DoveNet, which is active. They probably get 50 or 60 messages a day and the various boards there. A lot of talk about current events on there. And, of course, no censorship. Obviously, it is up to the individual BBS owner, that being me in this case, if you wanted to censor certain topics or content. In my case, as long as it's nothing that breaks a federal law, you are welcome to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. Now, if you're trying to sell drugs on my little BBS, I'm most certainly going to call the cops. If you're trying to do anything that is illegal, I'm certainly going to call the cops. But as far as free speech goes, if you want to spew racist hate speech, you are welcome to do so. As much as I hate it, you're welcome to do so because the freedom of speech shall not be infringed upon. Right, my friends? There we go. So I'm not going to post on that. Here's some of the other ones you can see here. We have stuff related just to, well, I can't say that word or I might get censored here on YouTube, but coast to coast. Classified chat is where folks who have information, stuff out of China, stuff that's of interest would want to post. The paranormal side, we talk about stuff on the Midnight Cafe, pretty much. Vintage computer chat, who doesn't like old computers? CB and ham radio, well, you know, everybody loves CB and ham radio right now. So that's where a lot of you guys come to my channel for. So there's an opportunity to talk there. So that's pretty cool. And if you wanted to add something, you simply just go to, yes, do I want to post on that? Let's see, if we wanted to post something here, we would say new radio. And then you go in here and you have basically a fairly simple text editor. Oops, there we go. And then when you're done, you use the slash commands. Control K will show us everything we have here. So I think it's Control Z, is that correct? Yep, save message and exit. So Control Z, and there it is, it saved it. So, and then we go on here. So that was the end. The Midnight Cafe has its own message board if you want to have requests for specific shows or old files. Then we move on to DubNet. This is a network, but it's very interesting. It doesn't operate like the internet where everything is interconnected at all times. It uses something called packets, and it calls out. And so several times a day, you can configure it however you want. You call out to other BBSs. Those BBSs have files that have been posted or messages that have been posted by users, and the transference of information occurs. So I call one BBS and transfer any messages that my board has given, any files that my users have uploaded. It goes to their computer. Other computers call in as well, and those that information is then centralized, sort of, but it's also decentralized because my computer also takes all that information and brings it to it. So if a node goes down or a BBS goes down, other ones pick up the slack. It's actually a really good censorship-free way of dealing with information, because it's almost like BitTorrent is. You have a non-centralized. Each computer contains an identical copy of the setup, so it's really kind of cool. These folks are DubNet General sees a lot of information. 900. Look at that. This is from last October, but let's go over to 900 and see how things are going. When was this? September. Or so this is like literally today. So the last 13 messages are here, and it's interesting. So I'm curious. I haven't been on here in a few days myself, but I'm curious to see what they're talking about as far as current events. You know, it's kind of interesting to see how these things play out. I'm going to quit out of that section. So there's your scan, your message bases, but there's also files, transfer of files. So I go to the file section by hitting T, and I can search for new files. Nothing here. Right, but I do have different file bases. So I go to art. There's art stuff. That's the art, as in Art Bell. Coast to coast information, text files. That would be information that you found online. You want to copy the text and paste it. You can upload it as a text file. You have InfoWar stuff there. Midnight Cafe files. So let's say I'm interested in maybe downloading some old Midnight Cafe files. There we go. Midnight Cafe episode 1, 2, and 3 are available for you. And these are audio files only. So if you want to download these podcast style and put them on your iPhone or whatever, play them in the car. So that's it. So that's pretty cool. You can download these. They would transfer it to your computer. You can also upload. So I can upload files. If you find files of interest, you find an interview you want to listen to, or you find files, old coast to coast files you want to share. There's a lot of great coast to coast interviews, maybe not the whole show, but just the interviews that are still cool to play with even to this day. So that's also available. And there's a lot of these places have games as well. I never focused on the games here on this site. I do believe there are some in here, but I've never been into them. But that's it. That's what I wanted to show you that. I'm going to go ahead and log off, and we'll call it a day. That's it. Look at that. Be sure to post a message or two before logging off. Mad dog, right? So that is BBS's, and I'm glad I got a chance to talk to you about it. Let me go back and sit down in front of the camera, and we'll talk about why BBSs are still important even in the modern era. All right, so now that you've gotten to see how the computer works, how the BBS works, let's talk about why you would want to use something like this in the modern era. Let's say you're part of a group, a small group that has gatherings. You want to have confidential communications, or you want to confidentially transfer files back and forth. while the internet is still a mostly private place, anything you put on a bulletin board, like let's say Atari Age, that's all about Atari products from the old days. That's a bulletin board that you can go onto in the internet. It's one that I can think of off the top of my head. Certainly the comments section of YouTube is a bulletin board in itself. People post comments and trade information. But if I wanted to do that with a group, let's say I had a group of people, maybe it's a gun club, maybe it's a prepper network, maybe it's whatever, and there's lots of prepper networks available on these things. But if I wanted to do that, I could set up a central computer, tell the people the access to that, make it unlisted. Just tell them what it is. In the case of this one, it's the midnightcafe.ddns.net. It's a wide open unit at this point, but for many years mine was a private website or a private BBS server. But I give those people that information, they download Synchronet, and now we're able to communicate privately on our own. Like I said, it's kind of like the dark web or the deep net. It's just a forgotten net instead of the deep net. So it exists, but yeah, I could transfer files, and I could transfer pictures, I could transfer text information, and certainly we could log each other and comment back and forth on posts, talk about current events or whatnot. These are interesting things that you can do with these. A lot of these sites exist. I think there's over 600 of them that are at least listed at this point on BBS Corner, which is an interesting website if you're interested in looking at some of these. And some of these have been around for 20 years, some of them come and go fairly rapidly. Certainly there's ones out there that are far superior to mine as far as the care and love they're given. Mine at one point was very well cared for, but after the hard drive crash wiped out all the files, I just haven't put as much effort into it. But if I wanted to upload, say, audio files from my favorite podcast and they were copyrighted, but I wanted them for personal use, or I just wanted to share them with a friend, this would be a way that you could do that without having to worry about maybe violating YouTube's policies or whatnot. So it's an interesting back door to the internet. It's a way that you can still operate your own internet, your own, where you're the king. So freedom of speech is your thing, which is obviously it's mine. Then this is an opportunity where anybody could say anything as long as it wasn't truly illegal. If it was hate speech and you're okay with that on your board, well, then you could let that happen. If you wanted to trade information on a subject that was no longer something that was commonly being talked about, there's certainly world events now that they are molding the information on. This would be a way to be able to get that information out without hitting any roadblocks on the regular World Wide Web. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It is an interesting, rare part of history, and it's something that's still out there. So the program is free, the software is free. In about an hour, you could probably set your own up for your own group or just for fun, and practice with it and use it as a file server if you want to, or whatever. An email server, Synchronet is capable of being its own email server, so you can set up your own emails and send them out or whatnot. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely a bit different, but something that I've wanted to make a video on forever. So if you enjoyed it, or if you have any questions about it, feel free to get in touch with me. And if not, I'll see you next time. Take care.
There's always something that needs a little fixing on Far Point Farms. Freedom is mighty sweet.